Jealous of what? You choking on? Hey,
Hey, and here we are. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the
Yeah,
Codex
remember that
Station.
great animation studio from the enemies from the 80s, Deke?
Deke. I don't know. What were you?
DIC?
What were you smoking?
What were you sipping
Anyhow,
on?
no, I don't know. I'll think about that one. I don't. It doesn't sound familiar to me.
you just threw Scout completely off.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Codex Station's comic character of the week. We take one character, give you that deep dive on that character, and of course, tonight's character is Snake Eyes. We're going to be running with our usual suspects right down below me. I'm going to start with Dan the Man Kelly. You can always find him on Instagram, right there at Dan Kelly Art. Dan, why don't you show him some stuff about what you can do? Right there. Right there. Show him that Snake Eyes picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so check out my page where you can see stuff like this Snake Eyes drawing that I did like 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still available for purchase.
There you go.
So go check it out and give me a follow and some likes.
All right.
As well as the Codex Station on our YouTube page and our Instagram and our every social media.
That's right. You can find us on any social media. By all you got to do is what, Jamie? What do you got to do to find us on social media?
Type in the Codex Station because that's where you're gonna find us.
There you go. And they can also go online at thecodexstation.com and check us out there. Meet the team, get some merch, and so much more. It's a great website. It's built by Uncle Gary himself. I mean, it's amazing. So it is amazing. I'm your host tonight, Sal the Slab Guy. And don't forget, you can always find me on Sal's Comic Corner on YouTube, or it's the Slab Guy 77 on Instagram. But find me here on Codex because it's so much better.
Yeah, you can find me on Codex because that's my life.
Because you are Codex.
Yeah,
you are Codex.
I am Mr. X.
Yes, there you go. So how you guys doing tonight? You ready for this character?
Oh, I was born premature ready for this character, I guess.
Ouch. Okay, man.
What does that mean?
I'm not even gonna.
I was not ready.
Oh. Well, you know, it's technically my pick, but Sal was really the one that picked it. He was like a while ago. He's like, "Oh, you should pick Snake Eyes for your pick one week."
Oh, hold on, yep, there you go.
Oh,
Mobius. Hey, Mobius. Dude. Good to see you, buddy.
Nice. What time is it in London right now?
Yeah, you got to start watching it more because you won
2.
What, a prize like months ago, dude.
Yeah,
because they're behind us, so it's like, what are they? 4 hours?
No, they're 5 hours ahead of us.
5 hours ahead of us.
It's like 2 a.m. for him.
Oh, well, thanks for staying up.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sal said something a while ago. He's like, "Oh yeah, Snake Eyes cool. You should do Snake Eyes as one of your picks." I'm like, "Yeah, maybe I will." He goes, "I'm going to put him down for your next pick." I'm like, "Okay."
Well, it worked out. It's great.
So it's my pick. It's technically my pick, but it's really Sal's pick.
Correct. I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that.
This is like the inception of picks.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we sit around, we just like yell characters at each other until we figure out, which ones we want to, talk about.
Each other.
Yep.
What's up, Booge? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Booge. What up?
This is a character. If you were like me, I was born in '79, so I grew up in the '80s. So like right, in that like mid '80s when GI Joe, like the cartoon. Wow.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
When all that was coming out, like I was the prime age range for for GI Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, all that stuff, like mid '80s to to early '90s. What's up, Richard?
What's up, Richard?
Richard, how you doing, buddy? Hey, Richard, what do they got to do to like the Codex Station? What are they got to do? What are they going to do? Come on. Oh, work has been terrible for you.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Well,
that's everybody.
We're it kind of sucks for me too, but
Yep. Oh, go watch it. Okay.
No worries.
That's all good.
Thanks for stopping in, though.
Yeah. You appreciate that, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was in the prime target demographic for GI Joe, and of course Snake Eyes. Like anybody that was a fan of GI Joe, and then and tells you Snake Eyes either isn't their favorite or like their top 3 is just lying.
True. Very true.
Yeah, so I was born in '91, so I have no inclination of GI Joe.
Wow.
except for the new
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. Very good.
So
Well, as you
Yeah.
can tell
it's
by,
gonna be a fun.
tell by the spinner rack behind me, you could tell what era of it I will be choosing from.
Yep.
I'm gonna
You know
guess.
that silent issue? I cannot score that silent issue under $50. It is like jumping.
It is the
Something.
best issue.
I got it
Yeah.
for $250
Too
about a
fitty.
year ago.
Too fitty.
And then Loch Ness Monster said, "I need about 250."
Too fitty. All right. If you guys are ready, I think we should go ahead and start the show. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna kill the
Me?
pre-show. No, I'm not gonna kill you.
Oh.
Relax.
I'm like, you
I'm
need
gonna
me.
kill. There we go. This. I just wanted to get rid of that because I hate seeing the pre-show thing come up while we're live. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
In the words of the Beastie Boys, kick it.
I know them.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Codex Stations Comic Character of the Week. I'm your host, Alice Live Guy. You guys know the drill. We take one character, we do that deep dive on that character. Come on, if you've been to this show before, you know what's going to happen. You know what you're going to hear. Badass moments. You're going to see top covers, must-read stories, the whole 9 yards. Joining me tonight is this guy over here, J-Dub, the master, the commander, the maker of Codex himself, right there. And down below is Dan the Man Kelly. You can find him at Dan Kelly Art on Instagram as well. How you guys doing? Are you ready to start this sucker off and get going, get to the good
Ready
stuff?
to do my absolute best.
Yeah.
There you go.
I didn't want to be in the army after I learned Cobra wasn't real and you didn't shoot laser guns. That's funny because I didn't want to be in the army ever.
That's funny. That's funny. All right, Dan. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the intro of Snake Eyes?
All right. Well, Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe was the, not the doll, the action figure
Mm-hmm.
way back.
The real American hero.
What'd you say?
The real American hero.
Yeah, with lifelike hair and kung fu action grip. Well, Mobius, you were about to learn a whole lot about him tonight.
Yep.
So in the 80s, Hasbro decided, well, we're gonna bring back the G.I. Joe line, but due to the popularity of the Star Wars figures, which revolutionized action figures and toys, they decided we're gonna do them in these 3 3/4 inch figures. And the initial wave was, a dozen figures for the Joes and a handful of Cobras. And Snake Eyes was one of the figures, and his first appearance in comics was in G.I. Joe issue 1 from June 1982, and Larry Hama is credited as the creator of him. So what it was Hasbro would create the characters. Basically, they would go to, they had to deal with Marvel and the writer Larry Hama, and they would say, here's the character, basically show them the drawing of them, like, here's the character, here's their code name, and that's it. And everything else Larry Hama would come up with. In fact, even when you look at the old blister cards where it have the little file cards on the back, those are all written by Larry Hama. All of it was him. So therefore, I will list him as the creator of Snake Eyes.
I'll agree.
So his origin is very shrouded in mystery to the point that even, since he's been introduced in 1982, we still don't even know what his name is other than his call sign, which is Snake Eyes. We do know that, all the different iterations through different media, live action, cartoons, comics, even different companies and continuities for comics. He's got a different origin or slightly different origin for each one. So we're just going to go with the original one, which is that he served in Vietnam. He was a long-range reconnaissance patrol. He served with Stalker and Storm Shadow. He got hurt in Vietnam, and when he was sent home, he was waiting in the airport for his family to. Yeah, you're right, Booge. Ham is a great writer. He was waiting in the airport for his family to get him, his parents and his twin sister, and they got in a car accident on the way there. They were hit head on by a drunk driver and killed. And it was actually General Hawk, who would later lead G.I. Joe, that was the one to give him the news. So he was left there out of the army with no family. So he went to Storm Shadow, who he served with in Vietnam, and joined his family's ninja clan, trained with them. Later on, left there. He was living in seclusion in the Sierra Mountains when Stalker, who was one of the first people recruited for G.I. Joe, helped recruit him for that. And then, we always list powers for characters. This isn't a superhero. This is a military guy. So he doesn't really have powers. He has advanced military training. His primary specialty is infantry. His secondary specialty is hand-to-hand combat instructor. As I said, he was a long-range reconnaissance patrol in Vietnam, which, if you know what those were the badass guys where they just drop a small team of guys in country and say, go find the bad guy. He has drill sergeant training. He's former Army Special Forces. He's a former Delta Force officer or operator. He's an expert in, all NATO and Warsaw Pact small arms. He has black belts in 12 different martial arts, including karate, judo, kung fu, taekwondo, muay thai, ninjutsu, krav maga, and more. He's highly skilled with edge weapons like swords, spiked knuckle trench knives, which you see him use a lot. Highly skilled with firearms and explosives. Basically, he's one of the, in the world of G.I. Joe, he's one of the baddest dudes on the planet.
Mm.
And it's funny that the only reason he was created is because when they were making the initial toy line and they had all the military characters, they wanted one more character for the line. So they created Snake Eyes because they could use different pieces of molds from other characters, and the only thing unique to him was his head sculpt. And then they just made it in black plastic and just didn't paint it. And then bam, they had another figure for the line. And that's literally the only reason that he exists, is because they wanted a cheap final figure to make the line a little bit bigger.
Wow.
He became the most popular member of the team.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump to our first segment then of the night, which is how this character works best. I think I'll go first on this one. And from what I've read, and I've read a crap ton of Snake Eyes in the past week and a half. It's the master of hand-to-hand combat weapon specialist. You see that a lot, and that's just amazing. I love that. That really works well. I think he works well solo or maybe with one other character. I like the idea of just kind of dropping him into a situation, just saying, go, and he goes out and does his thing. He adapts really well. He overcomes situations very easily. He's really defined by his he's shaped by his laws, his loyalty, and commitment to justice. I like that part of him. And stepping out of comics a little bit, I think he's really drawn well. I liked all the action sequences that they drew him in, because we see a lot of fighting sequences with superheroes. And you're okay, that's pretty cool, but that could never really happen. But when they were drawing him, they didn't draw him so much that he was out of reality. The stuff he was doing, you could say, okay, a well-trained ninja or a well-trained weapon specialist could do this. That type of situation.
Yeah.
And to top it off, he's got a pet wolf. I mean, come on, right there. That's just amazing. I love that. It's pet wolf is named Timber. I love that part. So, all right, Jamie, what do you got for that?
So what I like best about him is something that has been lost, I think, in comics for a very long time, and that is that he might be the only person that doesn't have a true origin, like story. Like you could look at certain characters, like we've had discussions about it, but we didn't need a Joker origin.
Nah.
You know, we don't
Right.
need to know those. Some characters are better off not knowing, and that's what I like best about him is that you just don't know what it is. Like you can say, yeah, training with Storm Shadow and everything else. That's always going to be the tight knit, but that's all you're going to know. There's nothing going to be before it that you're going to find out. That's going to be like, oh, well, when he was a kid, when he picked up his first sword, he stabbed a squirrel in the foot. Like and that's when it started. Like, no, we don't need to know that kind of stuff.
Right.
I like the mysterious mystique behind everything else. So that's what I like most about him, other than the fact that, he just come up behind you and kill you and you would never know.
Very true. All right, Dan, how about you?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, created in 1982, and even though he has, the origin I gave is the one from the comics, but even that, it doesn't have everything because it
does not flashbacks.
Yeah, it just lists a lot of stuff as, mission classified. So enough to know, okay, he served in Vietnam with Stalker and Storm Shadow, and this other guy, Wade Collins, who then was part of Cobra, then not. But you knew he served in Vietnam and got hurt. You knew that his family died. He studied with Storm Shadow, and he then went and joined G.I. Joe. There's a lot in there that's not known, which you don't even know his name.
Yeah.
Never revealed his name. He doesn't even talk.
Watch him be like Chad.
Yeah. And that's one of the things too, is the reason that he wears the mask and he doesn't speak is because on one of the first G.I. Joe missions, their helicopter got hit. It's going down. Rock and Roll, and I forget who the other one was, jumped out of the helicopter. Scarlet got trapped, and instead of abandoning her, Snake Eyes is trying to help, and this exhaust from the other helicopter that hit him blasts him in the face, scars him, tears up his vocal cords. But still, like, there's so much about him that's unknown, and that's cool. That's why everybody likes him. That's why he's cool. He's the cool silent ninja, and because you don't know a lot about him, that it's easy to put yourself in his place. You
Right.
can't really put yourself in the place of Superman. You're like, well, I'm not a reporter. I'm not married to Lois Lane. I didn't come from Krypton. This, but with characters that you don't know, where they're from, it's easy to kind of, put yourself in there. So I always, glad that they have kept that with him. And I like seeing him as just a badass ninja commando, like Sal said. Just drop him in and be like, go. It's funny because in the comic he was so popular. He was a very prominent member of the comic. On the cartoon, other than the first few episodes, he wasn't a prominent member of the team. But and then in the movies and other iterations, some more so than others. But I like it better when he's on small teams. I always dig it when he's teaming up with doing missions with Scarlet and with Stalker and Storm Shadow because he has that shared past with him. But
Right.
like small small units, not like, all right, we're sending 20 guys in and Snake Eyes is one of them. Like, no, 3 or 4 of them and that's it.
Right. Okay, very good. For our next segment, we got our badass moments, and I think Dan, you need to kick this one off.
All right. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8 of them. So I'll pick 3. I'll pick 3, and if I say you start saying one or one of you guys got it, just be like, I got that, and I'll skip to the next one.
All right.
So
I just like when you explain it, so that way I don't have to do as much work.
Well, I got one from G.I. Joe 21, which I know Sal has one from it, but he's got a different one.
Right.
The one I have is from the end, which G.I. Joe, and like Jamie said earlier, we're going to dive into this issue a lot. This is a very important issue, not just for G.I. Joe, but like kind of for comics in general.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a scene at the end when he goes into Destro's castle to rescue Scarlet, and she's got one of those I can't remember what it's called, but it's this like cool
flight pack.
pack thing that Cobra, which I never had that toy, but I wanted it because it was badass. But she's in that, and Storm Shadow throws his sword at her, and Snake Eyes is behind her, and this sword flying at her in midair. He just reaches over her and claps, catches it, and then throws it off behind him, and then they take off and get away. And I was like, that's badass.
Yeah, very true.
I wasn't gonna stop you. That was one of mine.
Another one I have is, there's been a couple different tellings of his origin that we'll get into. Some of them give a little more details than other, but none of them really reveal anything that other ones haven't. They just kind of delve into the stuff that we know more. One of them was towards the end of the original Marvel run, G.I. Joe 144, when I was saying how he tried to rescue Scarlet, get her free from this helicopter that was going down.
I
he might be. That they said that in an interview that it was it's basically a parody of. They needed like an independent character more than anything, so that's who they used.
Yeah, you're right. Snake Eyes really hasn't, at least in the main continuity, really hasn't gotten too much more. But you're right. I've said before, I felt like that's kind of what ruined Wolverine for me. I mean, I still like the character, but losing that sense of mystery. Same thing for Boba Fett.
Right.
And yeah, Booze, you're right. Total badass mode.
It is.
So 144, it shows a little more detail of the mission when he got his face messed up. So it was one helicopter that hit theirs, and like the heat and this exhaust hit him in the face, scarred his face up to the point where they showed it where it was almost kind of melting, tore up his vocal cords so he couldn't speak. And they're like, all right, we gotta call off this mission. We can't do it. And he's like, He communicates with him enough to, even though he's in excruciating pain and his face is pretty much gone at this point, he just has him wrap his face up in bandages and continues on the mission, and the mission is successful. Like, I mean, that's how badass is that?
That is.
You're like, oh, my face got blown off and my vocal cords destroyed. Whatever. Let's go take down the bad guys, anyways.
Yeah.
And then the last one I'll throw out now. And if none of these other ones are given, I'll run through them later. Real quick. The last one I have is a more recent one. It's from Batman Fortnite 0 Point Issue 3. Snake Eyes fighting Batman. Then the only reason I bought that series is because in the ads for it, I just saw a big ad, and it was just Batman and Snake Eyes fighting each other. And I just saw it, and I'm like, what's that? And then it's Batman Fortnite. And I immediately, next time I went to the comic shop, I was like, put me down for this. Never played Fortnite before. And there's a million Batman miniseries that come out. So if not for this, I would have just completely ignored it. But when I saw Batman and Snake Eyes are fighting, give it to me.
Sign me up.
And it was worth it. It's almost an entire issue long fight that's just Batman fighting Snake Eyes, and Snake Eyes is silent. In the world of Fortnite, Batman couldn't speak. So it's just them fighting each other with no way to really communicate, through talk, until they kind of figure out towards the end, oh, okay, we're both kind of good guys, and then they work together, But, I mean, that's one of those things as a fan, you're like, oh, what if Batman fought Snake Eyes? That's something we'll never see. Well, we saw it, and it was awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Dan, we'll circle back to the ones, your badass moments that maybe we haven't covered a little bit later, probably towards the end of the show, but that's all right. We do want to hear them. Jamie, what's your badass moments?
Yeah, so he had my first one, which was catching the sword. That was bad. Bougie agreed. My second one is, I have it written down, so is him versus Storm Shadow from Real American Hero 26-27. It's just, if you want to think about pinnacle of like martial arts in comics, like this just showed it. It was just back and forth brawl. It was amazing. So if you guys get a chance to look that up, trying to be quick about it. And lastly was him sacrificing himself. Which one was this? Snake Eyes Dead Game number 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Basically, he's fighting a villain, and I'm the name of the villain. So, Kerrigan, and he's basic villain trope. I'm a just destroy the world, take everything over, and to stop him, he sacrifices himself, detonating explosives to save his team and the world, but also destroying himself and the villain at the same time. Just showing that even though there's no speaking rules, there's no thought bubbles, there's no nothing else, he still is the guy to make the play at the end of the day.
And that's a good point with no thought bubbles, because even though he can't speak, he can still think.
Yeah.
It's still never like, but it's.
I want one time where it's at the end of a book where everything's happening and Snake Eyes in his head just goes, "What the fuck?"
Oh, whoa.
But see that again, that adds to the mysterious. Like, you never even know what he's thinking either. You have to rely on it completely by how the artist draws him.
Yeah, and, panel by panel.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so here we go with my badass moments. Snake Eyes Volume 1. He is actually trying to break into a Cobra base, and it's like one of those things that are bases that are like supposed to be impenetrable type situations. And the perspective switches to the bad guys, and they're like, "Oh, we're under attack." And the guy's like, "Yeah, we've got what? We got one, we got two, we got three, we have three, we have at least 3 targets hitting us." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I only read Snake Eyes," because it was one of those situations he was dropped in and just let go. And I'm like, "Wait a minute!" And he gets to the next panel, and you see that he set up 3 individual machine gun targets, and they're all just on automatic fire, while he's taking another route to get into the base. That like shows like the tactical thinking of him, and that was just badass for me. I loved that. And in my next badass moment, I have in Agent of Cobra, the fight with Storm Shadow. This is another well drawn out fight, like I read with the other one that you talked about, Jamie. Also really good. It's like one of those just knockdown, drag out fights. He gets his sword caught in a tree. Okay, now this sword is like half sticking out the tree, and half sticking out the tree. I'll say it like that. And during the fight, he positions himself so that Storm Shadow is in between him and the sword, and he can actually knock Storm Shadow into the sword that's stuck in the tree. So that whole fight was just choreographed so that he could maneuver him in the position to knock him into the sword that was sitting in the tree. Love that. That was just amazing. So my silent issue badass moment. Yes, the sword grab was incredible, but there was another one that reminded me of Indiana Jones, and the ninja steps out. He's got the size, and he's spinning them like this, and Snake Eyes is just sitting there, and all of a sudden he just pops a grenade, tosses it at him, and then leaves.
Later.
I'm like, okay, that's pretty badass. I love that.
Well, that's cool with him too, because even though he's the ninja, you always see him like pictured with his Uzi and with grenades.
Oh. Timeout. We have a timeout, ladies and gentlemen, on the field.
Sorry, my daughter is upstairs doing science experiments and is very excited to show me.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, that's what there's so many badass moments because I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 5 other ones that weren't even touched on.
All right, we'll get to them later in the show then. All right, we'll get to them. Let's just go ahead and move to our next segment then, which is critiques and criticisms of what we don't like about the character. I'll start first with this. I really thought the lack of thought bubbles was kind of a bringing out situation for me because, yeah, you're right. He can't talk, but he can still think about things and what's going on. Like, oh, I wish I could say this to them, or I can't do this. But, you don't see any of that. It does add to the mystery, and I have to turn it around and say it grew on me to where I like it, but I didn't like it at first. Okay. Right. So I didn't like that at first, but it does turn around on me. The other thing is, I didn't really. Okay, so let's just play out the scenario here. He gets hurt. His vocal cords are damaged. You'd think he would learn to communicate some other way, sign language or military language, like He
does do sign language.
He does. Does he do it? I didn't read any with sign language. It was mostly just 1 or 2, like signal type things. I didn't know he did the whole full sign language thing.
Yeah, he does it with. I don't know how many Joes that know it, but I know he does. He communicates that way with Scarlet.
Right, because I know they eventually get married in one situation, I believe. Okay, so maybe I haven't read it fully then. There's maybe some stories out there that I have not read. But that's pretty much why I didn't like. How about you, Dan?
One of them, and I guess it's just the nature of the beast with a property like this. Like, let's face it, this character was created as an action figure, and everything else that came out after it, whatever you want to think as a fan of it, it's created to sell the action figure.
Right.
And whenever there's a new suit, it's because it's a new version, a new suit for the action figure to get you to buy the new one.
Spend more money. Merchandising.
What's up? Yeah, what's up, Sapphire? Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hasn't read any G.I. Joe. So. Oh,
thank you, Mobius.
Hey, Mobius, thank you, buddy.
But I guess, one, gripe I always had, and this is something that confused me as a kid when I didn't really know it, is that there's not the consistency between mediums. Because when I was a kid, I'd read the comics and I'd be like, oh, okay, so Snake Eyes and Scarlet are together in it. And then you watch the cartoon and Duke and Scarlet are together. And, again, as a little, kid, not even 10 years old, I was confused. I'm like, I didn't understand how there were the different mediums. And then, and then they, when Marvel, loses G.I. Joe and it starts going to Image and Devil's Doom and then back to Image and, and all these different, IDW, all these different companies that, they are like, oh, we're going to restart it and we're going to do this and we're going to do this and this is going to change, and then there's the live action Snake Eyes movie, like, oh, we're going to completely change this. Like, I thought the origin he had in, the original G.I. Joe was perfect. It told you just enough of what you needed, to get into the character without revealing too much. And it really fit with him too, for it being a military thing. Mm-hmm. And then, no, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, and then I'd say the other thing is just, we see it all the time with too many Batman characters, too many Superman characters, too many Spider-Man characters. Snake Eyes was the most popular G.I. Joe. So what do? Let's create a whole bunch more ninja characters. And it just diluted it. And none of them are good. There's Snake Eyes, there's Storm Shadow. And then there's all these other ones that are kind of like, whatever. Like, Jinx was all right, but, or Quick Kick was pretty cool. I'll give that. Quick Kick was cool. But they're like, let's just introduce a whole bunch of other ninjas and just water the whole thing down. So I didn't really dig that.
Okay. All right. Talking Geek said he's loving the show. Wish you could watch all. Got to get back to work. Hey, buddy, we feel you. No worries. Catch us on the rewind. Watch us again, later or when you're off. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right.
So watch it on YouTube and drop a comment. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, buddy. Definitely. All right. Next up is Top Covers. Let's see.
Jamie.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. My apologies.
Sal's going to get fired for the first time in the new year.
I know. Well, I haven't gotten fired yet.
He's not. Don't worry. He's not going to. So let me talk for a second. How dare you, sir?
I'm sorry, Jamie. I thought you went first on that one.
No, you took that unbeknownst luxury. No, all I was gonna say was, and this is how I feel about the character, is I don't like how they just, to me, use him for the big play. You know what I mean? Dan brought up the point of, okay, they send him in with 2 or 3, maybe 4 people at a time, where he could be on an ensemble and still be a forefront and still be a force to be reckoned with. Where I feel like that's their trope, to use him as this character that we only send him in when it's serious. You know what I mean? He's more than that. He can be more than that. Now, he doesn't communicate, obviously, so he can't tell them that. But to me, as a reader and now becoming more of a fan and, picking up the pulls as they come out now, to me, he should just be a team player all around, because everyone loves the character. I want to know what he's doing most of the time anyways, instead of just being like, hey, so this mission is going to be really, really, really bad. Okay, what do we do? Send in Snake Eyes. Oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that for 75 issues.
What's up, Hagen?
Hey,
How you
Hagen.
doing, Hagen?
I hope you
feeling
feel better soon, man. I know
Yeah,
you've been,
man.
Yeah.
I know you've been sick for a bit.
All right. Now, Jamie.
Are you sure?
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and move on to top covers, ladies and gentlemen. And I was going to start with you, Jamie. Why don't you show us your top covers here?
I'll
Let me go ahead and
show
pull
you
these
off
up
the
for you.
show.
Well, how about you test your top covers, okay?
Okay.
There
I'm
you
just
go.
testing my firing abilities. So, first one, obviously, we're going to talk about it here in a little bit, but G.I. Joe 21, Silent Interlude, it's just, he's hanging while shooting at people. And you see bullets ricocheting off of him. How cool is that? To me, it's just, that's what I want to see when I'm looking for a cover when I'm buying it off the stands.
Yep.
Anything else is if he was just standing there with no guns, holding a sandwich, I wouldn't get it. But next up, we got G.I. Joe 53. And the only reason I picked this one, to be honest, was because I thought of Dan automatically. And I was like, oh, he likes these covers. And then I started looking at it, and I'm like, I'm starting to dig these covers too.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite of all the portrait covers is that Mike Zeck G.I. Joe. Mike Zeck had a run of doing G.I. Joe covers that were just awesome.
Yeah, and just that full portrait of just him holding the gun. He's going for his, state license or something. It just looks awesome. I want to be able to do that, but I'd be in jail. And lastly, I have G.I. Joe Real American Hero 94. It's just cool to see the tape come off. You know what I mean? And we talk about the scarring and everything. You want to see what's under the mask. There's mystery to characters, and then there's the things that can be shown, and this is one of them. You know what I mean? I don't need to know his background. I don't need to know every little detail of him being a child growing up and falling off a swing set and scraping his knee, and at that moment he was mad at the wind. I want to see, his face, what's going on, what's under that mask, and this kind of gives you that idea.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, Dan, you are next, and here you are.
All right, well, I've got another one from the Snake Eyes trilogy, like the one Jamie showed, but it's not the one that's the first part of it. It is 95. I love how he's standing there, and the suit's torn up, and that was that was the debut of his his new suit there, and it's torn up, and he's got the Uzi in one hand and the sword in the other, and the shit's on fire behind him, and there's all these various Cobra goons at his feet that he's clearly taken out, and he's just hunched over looking directly ahead, kind of like, who's next?
Yep.
Love
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What do you say?
So that's awesome.
Yeah. In the middle is 306. So that's the Image series. It's a continuation of the original one. This is by Andy Kubert, and it's such a simple cover. He's almost there's not a whole lot of detail you see in him because it's almost all in shadow and black, but you see the smoke coming off the guns. Again, you see the bodies of the Cobra agents on the ground there. He's pointing the gun forward, and it's just that it's the classic look with the visor, and it's just that kind of I dare you, come mess with me.
It looks like he just finished offing somebody,
Yeah, I mean, you see the bodies on the all around him on the ground.
You smoke and everything. That's just awesome.
And then the one on the end, it's Batman Fortnite 0.3. It's the alternate cover drawn by Jim Lee. I mean, it's Jim Lee drawing Batman fighting Snake Eyes. It just it speaks for itself.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. All right, here we go with some of my top covers. Look at that. I also had the number 21 silent issue. Jamie said it all. He got the bullets. He's got him firing the machine gun. It's just classic. the way the lighting of the his machine gun is lighting up on his body is really cool. Of course,
see, I knew you guys were going to be picking it. That's one reason that I didn't, because I'm like, I know it's going to be picked.
Good, be different.
Yep. So I did the let's see, the IDW, the middle one. This is the number 1 issue. I like that. It's kind of like, he's got the come at me, come at me, bro, type of attitude there. I love Timber on the front, so that's kind of, I kind of was partial to that. So that was pretty cool. Those 2 were done by Larry Hama, and then the last one I have is the Image one, number 311. I like the shadowing effect of this one. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. It almost kind of like he's blending in with the background. The visor kind of sticks out. The straps with the grenades and the sword and the gun sticks out. It's pretty cool.
It's like a negative space.
What's that?
It's like a negative space.
Yeah, it's like a negative space one. And the artist on this was Chris Mooneyham. If I have to say that right. Anyhow, I like that. That was a pretty cool issue for me. I like that. So there we go. All right. Let's move on to our next segment, which is essential readings. And Dan, you can go first on essential readings. Yeah, Booze, they are pretty sick covers.
Just stacking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got one more cover of the show. I'm sorry.
Oh,
gotta do this. So our buddy Travis at Comics Limited sent in a sketch cover, and check this one out. It is awesome. That is pretty badass. And ladies and gentlemen, Comics Limited is like another great podcast. You should definitely check him out. He's on YouTube or Instagram. Just do a search at Comics Limited. You'll find him. He's been on our show, I think, once or twice. Yeah, he's been on at least twice, I think.
Yeah, he was on for a Saturday, 2 Saturday shows.
Yep, great guy all around, but definitely you can check him out as well. All right, let's go ahead back to here. All right, Dan, what were you showing there?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Oh yeah.
Like I said, Mike Zeck had, he had, a run where he did some really awesome G.I. Joe covers. There's one that doesn't have, it doesn't have Snake Eyes on, and I forget the issue, but it's a fantastic cover where it's just like skeleton, like Grim Reaper kind of thing with a hood shooting an Uzi. It's just it's magnificent.
That's pretty cool.
You had me a Grim Reaper with an Uzi.
Nice. All right, Dan, let's go to your recommended readings. There you are.
All right, so I'll start off. We mentioned it before. Issue 26 and 27, Snake Eyes: The Origin. It's the title of that story. It shows basically the origin that I gave you in here. This is what it is. You see him in Vietnam with Stalker and with Storm Shadow. You see him getting hurt. You see his family. You see, him going to train with Storm Shadow, him joining G.I. Joe. It's only 2 issues, and there's others, the other ongoing storyline going through it. So it's, it goes through it quick, and it's been expanded in later issues, but even being expanded in later issues, I feel like this is the best version of it. It tells you just enough that you need to know without giving too much away. And then the next one, the Snake Eyes trilogy. Now I have 93 through 96. The Snake Eyes trilogy is 94, 95, and 96, but I put 93 in there too because I feel like that's essential to the story. So what it is Snake Eyes is finally going. He's worn this mask the entire time he's been on there. We've never seen his face. The closest we've seen is he has like a lifelike rubber mask that he wears, to kind of go out in public. But you've never seen his face, and in 93, that's him going to this world-renowned plastic surgeon to finally get his face fixed, and you finally get to see him take the mask off in that issue and see what his face looks like and how scarred and messed up it is. And that was a big deal when that issue came out. It's like, holy shit, we're finally going to get to see what he looks like under the mask, because you didn't really have any idea. And then it's him getting his face fixed, the surgeon dropping a dime to Cobra about him, to get paid, and them coming and the Baroness specifically coming to kidnap him. And it tells you in this issue in these issues the reason why she has a personal vendetta against Snake Eyes, and it's her coming to go after him. Shoots Scarlet in the head, puts her in a coma, and well, let's just say Snake Eyes' plastic surgery, while successful, does not last very long.
Okay.
And then G.I. Joe issues 103 through 108. This is, as I said, Scarlet is in a coma. She's not expected to make it. And, Snake Eyes is just beside himself. And so Storm Shadow, who at this point has left Cobra and is on the G.I. Joe team, there's these group of generals called the Jugglers that are the ones that have all the info, assign these missions. He goes and basically blackmails him and says, give me the toughest mission you have, to send Snake Eyes on, because I got to get his mind off of this. So they send him into this country, Barovia, which is in the midst of a civil war, so that he can rescue this U.S. agent, this U.S. operative that has been held hostage there for years, who happened to have been engaged to Snake Eyes' twin sister. So Storm Shadow puts him in this basically this ninja trance, this Arashikage mindset, and then turns him into a narrow focused killing machine and sends him on this mission to save this guy. And it calls back to other storylines that have happened before that, where he meets some people there that he had interacted with before, but you just see a whole storyline of Snake Eyes just being a total badass force to be reckoned with.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, Jamie, let's go ahead and hit yours up. Here they are. Boom.
Oh, look at that. 2 that we've already went over. So I had Silent Interlude. Strictly, this is for the reason of how awesome you can be telling a story without the ability to use any type of word bubbles, thought bubbles, and just tell it through the art, like instinctually, because that's all you have in this issue. And it's amazing to watch. And we covered it on Badass Moments. And the fact that, the cover alone just steals the show. Dan already went over my second pick, The Origin of Snake Eyes, so I'm going to jump down to the third one, which is something I didn't think I would pick. Only because of the fact that Rob Liefeld did it.
Liefeld.
Yeah.
So, he actually drew Snake Eyes well. Aside from the feet, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you call it? It just shows him throughout this whole series, it sets a different tone for the character for me. For most people, it's a great, because it was in 2020, it'd be a good, jumping on point, I would say, more than anything. That's why I'm picking this. But it shows his versatility. It showcases all of his abilities. It gives you Snake Eyes that you want to see. So, like I said, if I was going to pick one of these 3, I'd probably go with Silent Interlude. But if I'm going to jump to something more recent, I'd probably go with Dead Game.
Okay. Very cool.
And, I was going to say, too, that the Silent Interlude, issue 21, it's funny that how, of all the issues of G.I. Joe, that's one of the pricier ones. There's, issue 1, there's that one, there's the books at the end of the run when it was real low print. But it's funny that it's become as revered as it was, because when that issue came out, fans hated it. Larry Hama talked in interviews about how, how much fans would write in saying how much they didn't like it. They're like, there's no words in this. There's no dialogue. What is this BS? I just I just read through it too quick, and they just didn't like it. And then, it's one of those things we look back on and you see what a masterclass of storytelling it is.
Because there's people out there that sit there and basically, and this is side tangent, sorry. There's people out there that want the bang for their buck, where it's, I need narration. I need to know everything that's going on. I need to know what every character's thinking at every second of every time of every day. Where you don't take a second to sit there and appreciate the artist for what they do. And I think this book alone showcases that. Like, you just told me a whole story without having to use any alliteration whatsoever, other than pen or ink. You sit there and you just transform the generation to look and see, like, hey, these interiors, they take a long time, but they also are the ones that tell the story. It's not just the words; it's actually what they're doing as well.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, great class in storytelling of how you don't have to have all the dialogue, and you don't have, obviously
you don't have to
you don't
Claremont
want it all the time, but like for one issue, it did a great job. And Larry Hama drew that issue too.
Yeah. All right, very cool. Let's go ahead and jump to my readings then. And boom. All right, so Dan already covered the Origin, Snake Eyes Origin, G.I. Joe 26 and 27, so I'll skip over that. For G.I. Joe Snake Eyes, Agent of Cobra. This is the IDW version. This is pretty cool. He was it was like almost kind of like a dark what if type scenario where he was drafted into Cobra instead of the Joes, and it's still pretty cool because he's like, it challenges his core, his core motivations and stuff like that. It's showing him between past actions. Was that? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't read that. And a potential for redemption. It's showing him struggling with deep personal conflict, and I love that about this story. So definitely one to check out. For the next one is the Snake Eyes Volume 1, of course, another IDW. This is Volume 1 though, 1 through 4. This is where he's it does like a compelling origin story again. This complex emotional landscape, blah blah blah, that type of stuff. It's really good building that, and I like that part about it. And he's built more into a mystery figure of mystery, and I really dug that. He has a lot of internal conflict, and it lays the groundwork for future adventures really well. So for like they say jumping on point, maybe read this one because it kind of gives you a really good backstory of him, how he feels and how he goes forward with things. So I kind of like that, and I think you should check that one out.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in Agent of Cobra though now.
Yeah, that was good.
And isn't that one full of like crosses and double crosses and triple crosses?
Crosses, yep.
It crosses out the wazoo.
Yeah.
Well, he has this tie to, other than the original animated series, which it was more of a rivalry between Spirit and Storm Shadow. In the comics and all the other iterations, there's always the ties between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, and then Storm Shadow is another interesting character where he was in Cobra, and then it turned out he was only in there to try and find the person that murdered his uncle, and all that's a whole other story. But there's always that those ties between the characters that you see throughout all these different stories, all these different companies. I'm interested to see what Skybound does with it because they haven't introduced him yet.
No, and I picked up G.I. Joe based on your recommendation of getting into it. So definitely picked up the first one, and it's on my pull, so I got the second one. But not seeing him is making me question what they're going to do with him.
I actually dropped it after the second issue because they killed one of my favorite G.I. Joe characters.
Yeah.
At the end of the first issue, and then in the second one, they're like, he's dead. I'm like, what?
Yeah. I thought it was cool. I don't know. I don't have much value into the characters. So like I don't have that same as you do, but I actually enjoyed it, like the first and second one so far.
No, I mean they were fine. But I was like, Rock and Roll was always one of my favorites, and then you killed. Yeah. I think it would be for me like if they did a new Power Rangers book and I picked it up, and in the second issue they killed a character, and you were like, oh, I can't believe they did that. I love that character, and I'm like, I don't have any pre-existing attachment to the character.
It's understandable, but for me, I'm just like. I was like, holy shit, they just...
Oh, no, I get it. Just like in Transformers, how they killed Bumblebee. What?
Yeah. What?
Bumblebee's dead?
But yeah, they're, I'm sure whenever Snake Eyes pops up in there, I'm going to be picking it up because he's Snake Eyes. He's badass.
I know. Very true. Very true. So moving on to our next segment, which is best writer and best artist. I'll go first on this one. I'll make it pretty easy. Writer, Larry Hama, hands down.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. For best artist, jumped around a little bit, but I went with Frank Springer.
As I say, neither one of you better say Rob Liefeld.
Well, hang on a minute. Let me just
Hold on. He's got Jamie's answer. All right, Jamie, what do you have?
I guess people don't like feet like me, so I'm gonna go. No, no, I'm gonna go with Hama as well, and I'm gonna go with Zach.
Very good.
I would say I couldn't even pick Rob Liefeld as the best artist on a character that he created, and nobody drew other than him. I'd have to find fan art and be like, this guy on this guy on Twitter draws a pretty good blah blah blah.
Yeah, and then he'll block him.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll go. Yeah, you're right, Boosh. R.I.P. Rock and Roll. Rock and Roll is one of my favorite Joes. He's one of my top 10. So to see him killed off that early, I was just like, I can't do it.
Are you sure he's dead, though? Are you sure he's dead?
He's dead.
He's pretty dead.
Are you sure?
He's pretty dead, dude.
He's pretty dead, man.
That was
dead.
Remember that issue of G.I. Joe that I told you to read? What was it, 109? When
Yes.
I was like, you want to read an issue that really messed up 10-year-old Dan? Read that issue.
Yep. Issue 109.
Does that explain the Dan we have in front of us today? Because if so, I want to destroy that issue.
Yeah.
They gunned down, like not just killed, they gunned down like 7 Joes. Bah, 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 bah. I was like, when you're a little kid and you're reading G.I. Joe, it's a comic based on a toy. I was like, no.
Yeah, very true.
You're right. Rock and Roll will never die. So yeah, for me, writer.
Yeah, he's got his own action figure.
What other writer has their own action figure?
Yep.
Larry Hama. I got it with him. And for artists, yeah, I dug Mike Zeck for covers, but for interior art, I went with Mark Bright, who drew a lot of G.I. Joe, and he, really he had like kind of a cool gritty style that I felt really suited. Not all the Joe characters, but Snake Eyes, it really suited him. It was real good with his action scenes too.
All right, very cool. All right, so now that we have come to the conclusion, Dan, why don't you go ahead and share those badass moments that we didn't cover? I got to know these badass moments now.
All right, I'll run through them pretty quick. They're almost all of them except for one are from the Marvel G.I. Joe series, because that's what I read, and then I read a little bit of it when it went to Devil's Due, and then I started reading some of it with Skybound. So G.I. Joe issue 10, he is locked. He's trapped in the brainwave scanner, and Cobra Commander tells this guy, Dr. Venom, like, all right, be careful of Snake Eyes. No matter what condition he's in, he's still dangerous. And they're like, oh my God, he's getting ready to die. Like, we got to get him out of this. So he fakes dying so they'll release him from the brainwave scanner. And then as soon as they release him, he attacks and just beats the shit out of everybody there.
Nice.
G.I. Joe issue 31. It's an issue. If you look, it's the issue where the cover of it is him in his cabin and Destro looking like he's going to shoot him. So he is taking a break from the team in his cabin, and Hawk has told a couple other Joes to watch him, just to keep an eye on him to make sure everything's all right. And one of them is Spirit, and Snake Eyes is outside of his cabin and just kind of looks off like this and stares right at him and sees Spirit watching him from a tree covered in foliage from 10 miles away. The guy just stares dead at him, and Spirit drops out of the tree, tells his partner, he's like, all right, we got to move back farther. He sees us. Maybe we'll like make a Spirit's like, all right, well, put a campfire here and pitch a tent, and and maybe he'll think we're some tourists or we're some campers. And the other guy goes, you think he'll buy that? And Spirit goes, not a chance. Plus he's got his, like you said, he's got the wolf. They're like, plus we always got to keep downwind so that so the wolf doesn't catch our scent.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe 105. It was from that last recommended reading I have when he gets sent into Barovia. He liberates an entire gulag by himself. He because the country's in the midst of civil war. He goes in and he just starts mowing down every guard. There's snipers, there's everyone. He's in this like, ninja kill set, and they're all like, "Oh, we could take him. He's only one guy to do this." And then like, we can get him. And they're like, "No, we can't." He just takes down every guard, everyone there, and frees the entire gulag just to save the one guy, George Strawwacker. G.I. Joe 102. It was right before he went on that mission. Like I said, Scarlet had been shot in the head by Baroness. She's in a coma. She's not expected to live. Spoiler alert, 30 years later, she lived. They're not going to kill Scarlet, though they kill Snake Eyes, but that was stupid. Right as the issue ends, he's at her bedside and he says her name, which again, just like when they revealed his face and that was a big deal, that's the only time he ever spoke was to say her name, to manage to gutturally get that name out through ruined vocal cords. Shows how much she meant to him. Then the final one is from one of the G.I. Joe Transformers series, G.I. Joe versus Transformers number 5. He slices open Starscream's eye with his sword and throws a grenade.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Dan, you had a lot.
I mean, it's there could be so many more. This is one of those characters like he's just like every moment badass. Like every appearance he's doing something badass.
Yeah, it's like a Wolverine type of badassery. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen in the chat, if you have anything you want to add, please do so now. But we appreciate you guys every single time. We love having you here. We love talking to you, and we love interacting. So please keep that up. Once again, I'm your host, Sal the Slab Guy. Right over there is J-Dub, the master and commander of it all. Down below is the master of Instagram, Dan the Kelly Art. Thank you guys for joining us for Comic Character of the Week, Snake Eyes. We will see you next week when we're covering Mira. So, Have a good night. Oh, there we go. Let's add that. Let's add that because that's a cool comment right there. Add that. Yes. Very true, Boosh. Very true. All right, folks. Take care.